So as we look at this informational text, we want to focus on um, how we see people taking a stand and what taking a stand looks like. We also want to focus on those notions of um, how this particular medium has certain advantages and disadvantages. How does it let you really engage with the story in a meaningful way? And what are its limitations? Mr. President, how long must women wait to get their liberty? Let us have the rights we deserve. Alice Paul fought long and hard to pass the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, granting women the right to vote. She endured jail, hunger strikes, and forced feeding for the cause she believed in. The 19th Amendment was passed in 1920. Paul continued to work toward equality, uh, equal opportunity for women for the rest of her life. So we're going to use a couple different tools. The first is the highlighter. So information that we think is important, we can highlight. It doesn't have to look super neat as long as it lets us see it clearly afterwards. A couple important things. That's what we're talking about, the 19th Amendment. It was passed in 1920. And one thing I want to mention here, this text box allows you to write that when we see Paul, it equals Alice Paul. So it's important to keep that in mind. They'll talk about her with her last name throughout this text. I'll put this over here. And we want to keep in mind that when they do, they are talking about the woman Alice Paul. We're going to try to ask ourselves questions throughout this. So, for instance, I might ask myself, which was worst of these things that she endured? And sometimes I want to kind of show myself what I'm asking a question about or what I'm talking about, so I can use different color highlighters to draw attention between the text and what I'm asking. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So there's this button right here that will undo anything I did. Alice Paul was born in Mount Laurel, New Jersey on January 11th, 1885. Her family was made up of devout Quakers, and Quakers are a religious group. Devout here, this word devout means that they were very religious or that they practiced with a great deal of emphasis. To trace their ancestry meaning where they came from, back to William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania. Like most Quakers, the Pauls were against war, so this is common features, and believed in fairness and equality. Actually, I'm going to change this to a different color. I'm going to make this green. Against war, fairness, and equality. I felt that everyone, including women, should be treated equally. So I'm going to draw to show that this idea comes from them being that religious group. I'm going to hit submit. Should have a voice in discussions and decisions. Again, that's talking about women. Paul's father, William, was a successful businessman. Paul's mother, Tacy, was a member of the National Women's Suffrage Association. That looks important, so I'm going to highlight it, or NASA, and attended meetings supporting equal rights and the vote for women. Sometimes her mother even took Alice Paul along with her. So some of her ideas, it seems, are coming from her parents. The Pauls were affluent. Affluent. Affluent is a word that means really wealthy. This over here, make it a little smaller. They owned a large farm called Paulsdale, creative name, they named it after themselves, and felt that people should live simply and close to nature. They were proud of their eldest child, Alice Paul. I wonder if that affected her. How many of you are the eldest? Does it affect the way you see things if you're the oldest? Does it have an effect on your personality? Oh, I probably can't tell what I'm talking about here. Let me change this highlighter to green. There we go. She was smart and capable from the time she was a young girl. Her father often said, if you want something hard and disagreeable done, I bank on Alice to do it. So what does this say about her personality? Her personality or her character was, and then what do you think? What does that say? What does that quote say about her? Add your response right there, please. If you want something hard done, hard and disagreeable, meaning not fun, I trust, you can rely on Alice to do it. Paul attended the Friends School and graduated first in her class. At 16, she began studies at Swarthmore College. Now this is, oops, we don't want that color. Go backwards here. This is really pretty remarkable. First of all, she's going to college when she's 16. Second of all, she's going to college at all. In 1900, almost nobody went to college. My grandfather, which was not nearly as long ago, was really proud to have gotten through the 8th grade. So she is going to college at 16. That is quite a feat. A co-educational, meaning boys and girls, her grandfather had founded in 1864. So again, we're seeing that this is a pretty privileged and wealthy, well-to-do, well-established, well-connected family. She's going to the college that her grandfather, oops, I misspelled it. Privilege. I'm going to leave it like it is. It's just notes. Paul liked the camaraderie, meaning like friendship. I'm going to hit submit to go to the next one. Of her fellow students, she liked being able to wear colorful clothes instead of the drab, meaning like not that decorated. Drab, severe, whoops, wrong one. Clothes the Quakers favored. So, like a lot of kids here, she's kind of enjoying going to college and having some new freedoms and new perspectives. As a biology major, Paul was taught by some of the best female teachers of the time. That is also pretty rare in 1900. But toward the end of her 4 years at Swarthmore, she decided to switch directions and pursue studies in social work, a newly recognized profession. Its focus was to support people in need. Paul decided that that was just what she wanted to do, help improve people's life. She was excited to get a scholarship after graduation and set off for New York's Lower East Side. There she'd work among immigrants, mostly from Europe, who flocked to the neighborhood's crowded streets. So you can think about what we've learned about refugees, because her work here is connected to that. I am wondering why. Why the major switch? Not major meaning big, but like major meaning what she's specializing in. Why did she end up switching into social work? As soon as she arrived, she was astonished at how different the Lower East Side was from her home in rural New Jersey. The bustling streets were lined with pushcarts brimming with unfamiliar food. There was constant noise, and air was thick with strange smells. Try to picture it. People were poor, often sick, living in unsanitary conditions, meaning not clean, and had little medical help or means to find, not much on this page, we'll hit submit, better housing. There's a picture of it. Paul threw herself into her work, but it was often unrewarding. There wasn't much she could do really to help people's lives feel better. How do we think she feels right here? She feels. Write your answer. She told her mother, "You couldn't change the situation by social work." Without government assistance and new laws, a social worker had limited resources. After a year, Paul realized that she couldn't go on working this way. So notice, she's thinking about this right here. She decided to return to school and get a master's degree in sociology. When a Quaker group awarded her a scholarship to study in England, she accepted it. So this is truly remarkable. So she is now getting post-grad education. I mean, most people didn't get to high school, and she already got a college degree, and now she's going on to get graduate work. That's really rare. Part of that is probably about her. Part of that is probably about her privileged position. So I wonder how much of it is each. In England, Paul was busy with classes, volunteering at a settlement house, playing tennis, bicycling, making new friends. Sounds like she is having fun. Then one day she attended a meeting that propelled her in a whole new direction. And this is the person from that meeting. It was a talk by Christabel Pankhurst. Highlight that. About equal rights for women. And it made a huge impression on Paul. So I wonder why. Why did this talk? She seems to already believe this stuff. So I wonder why the talk made an impression. Pankhurst was fearless and passionate. Well, maybe that's part of the reason. She and her mother, Emmeline Pankhurst, were at the forefront, which is a fancy word for just saying front, of the women's rights movement in England. Their motto was deeds, not words. What does that tell you? Deeds, not words. Suggests what? What sort of tactics are they looking in? Paul couldn't believe how these strong English women were met with jeers, which is like mocking. Jeers are mocking. And protests. Paul was used to the quiet, agreeable manner in which Quakers held discussions. When she witnessed how the English audience treated Pankhurst, she felt sympathy and admiration for the cause of women's rights and the women who fought fearlessly for that change. So it sounds like what does she think about these folks? How is she feeling? Write your response there. And when you've done it, hit submit. Here's Emmeline Pankhurst. On a clear day in June 1908, the English suffrage movement held one of the largest demonstrations that England had ever seen. 30 trains carried women from 70 different towns towards the capital. They marched, made speeches, and proclaimed votes for women. They had a parade. Paul was impressed with the passion and the speakers and their courage, but even after the large demonstration, the prime minister refused to alter, meaning change, his views or